Welcome to our second July South Central Fresno Steering Committee meeting. Our meeting goals today are to provide an update on emissions mapping for South Central Fresno, and then to identify priorities for emissions reduction strategies. We are going to be working in groups today, so you may want to consolidate some of the tables where there are fewer people. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Brian Clemens from the Air District, who's going to give an update on the continuing technical assessment.
Thank you. That was very nice. So I'm Brian Clemens with the Valley Air District. I'm the Technical Services Program Manager. And today I'm going to give a quick update on our mapping tool on our website. A couple months ago, I had shown some like mocked up screenshots of what we were developing, but we realized we hadn't presented the the map that was posted on the website with all the interactive functionality that it had. So that's what I wanted to do here today. So if you go to our community website, community.valleyair.org, and then you select South Central Fresno. If you scroll down in this red box flagged with the word new here, it says emission sources and sensitive receptors. This is the tool. So there's an English version and a Spanish version. So if you click on the English version, it opens up the web application. Takes a second to load up the data. And so by default, it gives you a bird's eye view of the Fresno community. There's some instructions here on the left that kind of tells you a little bit about the legend and the key and the functionality. I'll minimize that for now because I'll show you. And so when you go in, if you click on the map and move it around, that sort of moves the map around. And if you click on this button here, see that says navigate, that changes it into a rotational mode. So if you then click on it and move the mouse up and down, you get kind of a flatter view where you can start to see some elevation. And then you can zoom in and then rotate. And what you'll see is the scale of the emissions, from our stationary sources that we have under permit. This is the emission inventory data that is on our website. And again, you can continue. You can zoom in as far as you want, and then rotate and take a look at whatever may interest you there. If you click on any one of the facilities, a pop-up box comes up. It talks about it gives a category of source that the facility is, the name, the emissions inventory that we have. In this case, it's VOCs, 5 tons. And so there's this type of functionality for each pollutant. So that would be on the top right here. There's a legend of what this information is. So NOx, PM 2.5, and VOCs. It identifies the different colors and some scale here. And then this button here is the layers list. So you can toggle on and off different things depending on what you're interested in looking at. So for example, you can turn off certain pollutants. Let's say you want to look at just PM 2.5 for right now. You could toggle off the other pollutants, or you don't want to look. So the area source information is in these squares represented by the different colors. If you want to turn that off, if it's too busy, and you just want to see certain things, you can toggle all these different things on and off. And same thing with the on-road emissions. If you click on the first triangle, that's basically opens up the rest of the options, so you can turn on the different pollutants here. It takes a second for it to come up. Let me just turn on one at a time. So in this example, it's on-road emissions for PM 2.5, and you can start to get a feel for where those emissions are generated. Now, if you want to know, there's also, if you click on the different areas in the map, maybe it's a little slow right now, but if you click on here, it actually pops up. It indicates the segment length and how much emissions are from that length. And then one other thing that's also available is the sensitive receptors on this map. So if you click it, those come up, and it's basically the schools, private schools, adult and child care facilities, and those are these indicators. And what they are is, if you want to click on one, it gives you the information of what that is. And then also on the legend, whatever is active on this map, it shows up on the legend. So you'll be able to know what you're looking at. So that's really the update that I had. Wanted to make sure everybody knows about this and the functionality. And we'd like to hear feedback on it. If you have any questions, even open it up right now if anybody wants to ask any questions or has any comments on it. All right. Oh, thank you. We have a programmer that's pretty good at manipulating data like this and getting it on using the ArcGIS tool. So, thank you. I'll pass that recognition along. Yeah. Yeah.
I believe the folks at CARB gave you some very good data on residential wood burning, and with parcel plot of each location where there would be a wood burning device. And I was wondering if any of that is, if you have plans to reflect that in another layer with this mapping.
Yeah, right now the area source data is one of the layers on that map. Residential fuel burning is in that, but it's all compiled into one total of area source emissions. We would have to sort of make additional layers and add that on the map. No, I don't know if we have the information available yet to present based on what you're talking about. We have it on a 1 kilometer grid, if that's what you're referring to.
No, I'm talking about parcel data.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we have that available. Maybe if ARB wants to.
What I'd understood from Karen is that the data that Jeremy Avis had last July at a PM25 meeting, that data would become available for this group at least. And Karen assured me that in fact would be made available. And it seems like it should be. But I am curious, since you have emissions inventory for the entire area, exactly what you came up with in tons per year for the expanded boundaries. Before you had estimated 4 tons a year, which seems a little low to me, in the initial boundary area. So what do you have now? What's tons per year residential wood burning for this entire, new bounded area?
Yeah, the number I don't know off the top of my head, but it is on that same area in the website. It has in a data file in a PDF. It has all the different categories of area source emissions, residential fuel.
Why don't you demo that for us right now?
Yeah. So that's back on the on each selected community site. So this is the South Central Fresno. I was pointing at this as the new map. If you continue to scroll down, there is. Oh, pardon? Oh, okay. So we haven't posted it for Fresno yet. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Maybe we have it up for Shafter at this time. Okay, so it should be coming shortly. Yeah, so maybe that's a note we can make to post that right away. Thank you.
real simple question to see how effective this is. Do you have a counter on it for, you know, how many hits you get, how many people actually interact with it?
Sounds like we do, yes.
And what's your estimation? What are your estimation of usage from the community who doesn't know it exists?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Well, we're just launching it here now and introducing it, so you know, we'll see what it turns out to be.
Well, what's your marketing, you know, as far as getting it out to the public, other than just us?
Well, this is intended to, you know, be a discussion point, something that the, you know, committee can use to, you know, point out if there's areas of interest or, you know, things that we can use in the, you know, development of our SERP or monitoring plan. It's a piece of the information. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's just it's inventory information. So originally it has, you know, been focused to be provided to the steering committee.
We'll take public comment at the end, and you can ask questions.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. We have a couple videos now that we're going to share with you, so I believe Jamie Holt is going to introduce them.
So one of the things that has come out of this committee already is some changes to some of our grant programs and some new focused areas. So I'm going to show these two videos. They're super short. They're about maybe a minute each, and hopefully we'll have sound on them, and then we can talk about them, or I'll take questions about them, and I'll explain them just a little bit more if there are questions after having seen them.
This has probably been one of the most successful programs that the district has ever done. And I really want to thank the 527 people for being here today and helping make our air a little cleaner.
This program is so important to Valley residents because not only are we able to find ways to deal with the very difficult air quality challenges that we have here in our region, but we do it in a way where we partner with Valley residents by offering financial incentives to clean up their vehicles, replace their vehicles, actually improve quality of life in so many ways.
Clearly, air pollution has a huge impact in terms of our lungs and our hearts. The good news is we've come a long way. We've made some tremendous progress. The air is more healthful than it's been in the past, but we have a lot of work to do, and this is a terrific program to help us achieve those goals.
What do you think about this program?
Well, like me, I'm a single parent, so it helps me a lot.
Tune in and tune up events happen every month in different cities throughout the San Joaquin Valley. To find out when Tune In and Tune Up is coming to your area, visit valleyair.org.
A direct result of the, are they back to back? Or are they two different videos? Oh, hold on a second before you play the next one. Of the AB 617 process, and I actually think it came from Shafter, so sorry, but is that we're going to be changing, and we have begun to change
What did I build with 80/20?
Background equipment so that, or the background processes and website, so that you can go up to a 2006 or older vehicle. Right now it's a 1999 and older vehicle that you can have replaced through our through the replacement part of the Tune In Tune Up program. Based on some feedback that we got in Shafter, we're actually going to make that a 2006 and older, depending on the type of the vehicle. So that's one of the things that was a direct result of feedback that we got. And now we'll show the other. That's not it, I don't think, but our other video. Oh, and I forgot to say, while they're figuring that out, I forgot to mention one more thing. On your table is the Luskin report that came out of a report that came out of the Luskin Center, which is at UCLA, and we had nothing to do with this report. We actually didn't know it was even happening until it was released, but it talks about the Tune In, Tune Up program and kind of the success it's had and kind of the role it plays in the community. So I encourage you all to look at that if you have any questions or, most importantly, any additional suggestions for how we can make the program even better. It has 3 arms to it. One is a replacement, which you can take your 2006 or older vehicle and have it replaced and get up to $9,500, which is pretty impressive if you go into an all-electric vehicle. You can also have your vehicle repaired up to $500, give or take, to have it repaired so it can pass smog. In many cases, that also allows folks to get it registered. And then there is the rebate that comes from both us and the state to get people into EVs. All right, the next video.
So this project before you today is the first of many projects that we're going to be implementing in this community, selected under AB 617. The Air District has been working very hard in this community to look for exactly these types of projects in partnership, in this case with Fowler Unified, looking for other business partners to basically deploy as much incentive funding as possible into clean air projects and look for every possible opportunity to help clean up the air in the community.
You may not know, but Malaga does sit in an area where the air pollution is not the best. And so for us to be able to help with that in implementing the electric school bus is what we need to do and what we want to look forward to. We have about 1,000 students that are actually using the bus already.
So this is the very first large capacity all-electric school bus in the Central Valley. A Type D transit all-electric Bluebird school bus with 78 passengers. It doesn't emit any particulate matter. It doesn't emit any NOx. It has none of that. It's completely pollution-free.
Here at Malaga, our #1 priority is to ensure the safety and well-being of all of our students. And over the past 3 years, the Valley Air District has partnered with us to ensure that. They've been an integral part encouraging us to be more informed about the community we live in and how to exercise our voice and become more involved.
So this is just a great story here and a great way to start this AB 617 community effort that we've been working on very hard at the Air District.
Malaga was fast-tracked and prioritized based on comments that we got from this committee. So the fact that they were the first to receive those all-electric school buses is a direct result of the work you've been doing. So I know often you guys are working so hard and you're putting in a lot of hours, and I just wanted to let you know that things are actually happening. Having said that, let us know your ideas, other schools, other school districts, other areas. We would love to hear that. So I do know that one of the other things, correct me if I'm wrong, John and Jessica, but Malaga is going to be a monitoring site, is that correct? Trailer. So they're going to have a trailer out at Malaga as well. Any ideas you have, feel free to, of course, we want to hear them. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And now we're going to move into our group exercise regarding SERP emission reduction strategy development. So Jessica Coria will introduce that.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's a little cooler tonight and we really appreciate everyone taking the time to come out and be a part of the steering committee. So tonight we're going to be continuing to focus on developing and refining emission reduction and exposure reduction strategies for inclusion in our Community Emission Reduction Program, or SERP. At our last meeting, we presented preliminary emission reduction strategy concepts and provided the committee an opportunity to talk one-on-one with experts about what those strategies might look like in the community and to get a little bit more information about what control strategies are already implemented in the community. And those table groupings were based on the prioritization exercise that we did back in May. So I wanted to let you know that posted online and also available in your packets is a summary of the voting, both the exercise votes and the survey votes for the prioritization that we did on May 30th. And then also, as a result of our last meeting on June 12th, we typed up all the written ideas that we received on the worksheets from the different committee members and included them in this packet for your review, and just so all of that's part of the kind of public record there. And then finally, we put together to kind of further support the committee's understanding of what incentive programs are already out there, how sources of concern are already controlled, and what existing programs kind of exist already, so that we continue to build on those strategies or develop new ideas. We put together this packet, which has information about how different sources of concern to the committee, which we've heard about from you through this process, are already controlled. So tonight is all about hearing from the committee and continuing to develop more specific strategies for implementation in South Central Fresno, and also to prioritize some of these general strategy concepts or kind of big picture ideas, and get the committee's feedback and the community's feedback on what you would like to see implemented in South Central Fresno. So to guide us through our exercise tonight, I'm going to introduce Jessica Olson. She's our program manager, and she'll be guiding us through.
Check, check. Awesome. Thanks, Jess. All right. So like Jess said, we got a lot of really great feedback. We asked last time for you to give us additional ideas that weren't on that SERP or strategies concept list. And tonight we really want to focus and understand that a couple of things that we heard from the committee last time, and that we've been hearing a little bit here and there, is that this draft strategy list that we presented is very general. There's not really anything specific. It kind of just generally talks about replacing trucks in the community. It generally talks about strategies to reduce emissions from wood burning, but it doesn't really specifically get into the kind of in-depth specific things that are important to you. And so we wanted to give you a couple of things tonight that will not only help give us the input that will help drive those specific strategies, but also help you decide sort of what those top priorities are, based on a little bit of a sort of criteria scoring exercise that the district went through. And so if you notice in your packet, we have this kind of strategy, I call it a criteria prioritization exercise, but this is really just a key to understand the rest of the packet. So last time there were some questions, well, how do I know that this is more effective or reduces more emissions than any of the other strategies we're talking about? How can I fairly compare them and tell you what I think is best if I don't know, based on your expertise, sort of what those emissions reductions or mitigation is going to be? So we definitely took that into consideration, and we hear you, and we thought this would be an easier way to take a look at these strategies, to compare them, but not go into so much detail that it was then just cumbersome as all of these different materials come at you every other week. So with that, this key that I'm going to explain to you right here talks about 5 different criteria that we used to look at the different strategy concepts. So the first criteria would be PM 2.5 emissions or exposure reductions, and then we scored the different strategies based on kind of just comparatively or relative to the other strategies in those categories, whether or not it was like the most reductions that you could get, or maybe the most mitigation. Maybe something is more of like install filters in a school system, so you're not necessarily reducing emissions, but you're reducing exposure to emissions, so that's kind of taken into account there. With the half circle being, okay, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely not like the least amount of emissions, and then an empty circle would be, it's something that doesn't really get us many emissions compared to the other strategies. The same thing goes for toxic contaminants, so we rated them the same way, with the full circle being like, this is definitely going to reduce toxic contaminants or exposure to those toxics, the half circle being kind of the empty circle, as so on and so forth. Cost-effective emission reductions or exposure reductions, again, sort of, does it cost a lot of money to get these reductions, or are there so few reductions for how much it costs it maybe isn't super cost effective? That's just something for you to weigh. It doesn't mean it's necessarily something we can or can't do. It's just another criteria to take a look at. So again, full circle being the best, most cost effective, this empty circle being the least cost effective. Feasibility of implementation was to kind of give you guys an idea of some of the barriers that might be in the way for implementing something. It doesn't mean that if it's empty, that it's impossible. It just means that compared to some of them, Like a fully feasible might be something that we're kind of already doing, but we're talking about providing more incentives or focusing it on this area. Something that's kind of that empty circle might be there's a lot of barriers, it's maybe not in our jurisdiction, maybe it's going to take years and years to implement, and so we're just kind of giving you an indication of that. And then finally, scale of impact on community. If it's a strategy that definitely hits at the whole community, maybe it's replacing cars throughout the community, older high polluting vehicles, or it's replacing many, many trucks throughout the community, that's something that might be rated very highly. If it's something that targets maybe one specific source, it might still be rated highly if that source is next to a sensitive receptor, but maybe if that source is kind of out in a specific region that isn't near a sensitive receptor, or based on our analysis, isn't polluting necessarily a lot around it, we would just rank that a little less of an impact to the entire community. Again, not meaning that it's not an impactful reduction or mitigation, it just means comparatively, that's kind of where it ranked. So we wanted to get a couple of things from you tonight. Given that it is this sort of working group, we wanted to dive into these. And you'll notice on each of these strategies, we have them not only scored and filled out, but there's a blank space underneath, kind of indicating that we understand these are vague and we want to know from you maybe what the specifics could be. I understand that there's a lot here and we do want to get through as much as we can tonight, but maybe focusing on sort of what your top priorities are. We tried to package them based on the sources of concern that Jess just mentioned, but even then from your own personal or your group's decision, pick a few within each category that you want to flesh out a little bit more. So an example might be for the tune-in, tune-up. I think if you look at the older high polluting autos, number 1 is vehicle replacement and access to incentives to remove older vehicles. A very specific thing for that might be something along the lines of what Jamie just said, where we're increasing the model year, meaning there are a lot more vehicles available, but maybe something else, just to kind of dive into some of the criteria to qualify for a replacement. You also need to fail a smog test, and so maybe something along the lines of removing the smog test failure and allowing more autos to be a part of that replacement program might allow more people to take advantage of that program. So that would be something specific that you could outline here. If it's something maybe about a specific industrial source, in here it's pretty general. You give us the specifics or something specific that you want to target. Some of the specific things I've heard, we talk generally about outreach to schools. Some specifics we've heard in some of the side discussions were maybe sending flyers home with parents that they have to sign. Those are the types of things we want to hear back from you specifically that are based on these main sort of categories here. We also want to get that prioritization from you, so that's where that checkbox is on the right-hand side of it. And this can be you checking your favorite ones or the ones you think are most helpful. You can go through and rank them all high, medium, low. We just really want your feedback on the ones that you want us to take those specifics and focus on those. Finally, I want you to know that we just took in all of that feedback from 2 weeks ago meeting, and we're still getting feedback from people that were allowed to submit via email. So the district is evaluating that as we go through the same process. So we definitely are going to take all of that into account, but we really, really do want your input on these strategies and some of your specific ideas. Does that make sense? Yes, Eric. Oh, you want me to?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good,
Eric Payne, a resident in Southwest Fresno. And so I guess my question is really centered around in kind of like digesting what you just informed us of, which was pretty prescriptive, but also understanding that as we have a Congress at our table about what we would feel as though would be kind of like those top-ranking priorities, would you say it's the position of the district that the document would seem somewhat incomplete if some of the other priority areas, specifically around industrial sources, is not yet quantifiable?
I see. So incomplete in terms of like information to you, certainly I can understand how that could be part of your analysis when you go to pick your top priorities. I would say though, if the industrial sources is your top concern, And still indicating that would certainly be okay, and even indicating we would like to see, you know, the quantification of some of these sources. Yes, sorry, yeah, it's kind of at the end of that. Good question. There are two things that say NYQ, and it's at the end of the sheet here on the bottom. And there is one, I think, that says indirect benefit, so that would be something similar where maybe it's us paying for fueling infrastructure, which obviously doesn't directly reduce emissions, but supports emissions reductions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Going back to the industrial sources, I mean, I think that putting NYQ, it's really not showing the picture, because you are missing here that at least for the biomass and the glass, those are the highest sources according to the map that you have been showing us, right? So, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this. We cannot measure, we haven't done it, so, but however, that shouldn't be like, oh, therefore that shouldn't be a prioritized strategy, so.
Right, right, and we definitely put it on here for you to prioritize it, so we don't want that to like preclude it from being prioritized. And I think the reason, and someone can step in here if I'm mistaken, but it's not yet quantifiable because this isn't really a fleshed out strategy. So quantifying it from like replacing one truck with another truck, we have a very kind of easy way to see how that's quantified. We do it often, and we have a very kind of robust process for understanding the general emissions reductions we get from that. A lot of these industrial sources here are kind of like onesies and twosies throughout the valley, and so understanding where we might put some of those controls, or what we might ask those sources to do, or what we might ask them to replace with incentives, it hasn't been discussed yet. And so maybe that'll be part of maybe some of the feedback from what specifically we want to do at those places will help us quantify that in the future. But again, that we would be, if that is your priority, that definitely doesn't preclude it from being your priority on here.
Okay. First off, industrial has always been a priority. I mean, it's been a constant from this committee forever.
Yeah, and that's why it's a full packet in and of itself.
What my frustration is you guys know you know how the meat is, you know how the sausage is made. Most of us don't. And at this point, for you to ask us, well, tell us how to do it, tell us how to do it, tell us how to do it. Well, you guys need to come and sit at the table, and if you don't have a chair, bring a chair to the table, sit down with us, and let's work this stuff out. Because every time I come, it's always the same thing. Give us a priority, give us a priority. Okay, we gave you a priority. Mm-hmm. Now help us figure it out. What are the nuts and bolts? How is this sausage made? What sort of seasoning do you have to put into it?
Right.
Because right now, when you ask me about land use, well, you tell me, I don't have my attorney on speed dial to talk to him about it. So what can be done versus if you guys figure it out and we'll let you know whether you can do it or not. That's my frustration at this point.
Yeah, we certainly understand that. And I want
well,
to
you can understand all you want. I'm done with understanding. I'm done with I'm sorry's. I'm more into let's get it action and move it forward.
Right. So I know for a fact that this is the sort of big culmination of a lot of that feedback, because we are 100% planning on one of the July meetings being the specifics, the how-tos, the nuts and bolts, exactly as you're mentioning. I think a lot of the controls for those types of things should be hopefully in that packet, and let us know if you want any additional information. We do have a lot of folks here that can help answer those questions as well. And I do understand it is a process, but we do want to we've asked for kind of high-level prioritization. This is kind of where we're asking for in the weeds a little bit. And so understanding that, correct, yes. So that's sort of, well, so we felt like that's, right, you're right, and that is the sources of concern that were prioritized, but these are, within each source, there are a number of things that can be done, and so we want you guys to tell us. And if, we're handing out all of these different measures, and if you don't feel like you can specify what is your priority, then you can at least be part of the discussion and work with others, but that's some of the feedback that we're asking in order to help dive into it.
What I'm feeling is you want me to write up your program for you.
we're just asking for feedback so that when we do write up the program, we have some specifics from the community.
So if we decide that one of these strategies is a priority for us, we put like a check mark?
Yeah, put a check mark, or if you would like, it just kind of is up to you. A check mark is good if it's your priority. If you want to rank all of them, you can rank all of them.
And honestly, we have been reviewing, I mean, some of us, other SERPs in other areas, so, you know, it's always good to see what other groups are doing and check bounce ideas and all that. So if we find other strategies that are not yet here, we can still send those to you, right?
Yeah, certainly. Yep, we welcome that. So what we want to do, given the time, which my watch is not on, but I don't know what time it is, we want to give you about an hour to, I think there's about 6 packets.
6:15.
So we want to give about an hour, so about 10 minutes per packet if you want to do it packet by packet, or you can just go as a group. We'll just let you know every 10 minutes when it's been 10 minutes, yes.
Now, on these little filled-in dots, which I found very interesting. Now, is that the level of commitment from the Air District, or your willingness to actually do something? I mean, what does it really reflect?
There's not anything on here that's a willingness or level of commitment. We've put all of this on here as something that is 100% up for discussion. So this doesn't reflect a willingness. This is just to give you some information. It was requested last time. How do I compare these? So this is just a quick comparison.
Based on whose values?
Based on the district.
So this is the district values, basically.
Correct, and they're based on kind of
of what they're willing to do.
Not a willingness. No, this is, again, this is,
well,
so
values
for
are
PM
kind of
2.5 reductions, for example, there's no willingness there. It would just be how many reductions we get. So a full circle would be it's many reductions. An empty circle would be it's few.
Because I will, you know, tell you, I was looking at, I ran through the list really quickly and was kind of disturbed by the CEQA stuff of an indirect benefit, where I see changing CEQA as a direct benefit as something that tips the dominoes. So I was kind of wondering, in whose mind frame did this risk analysis that would lower it to an indirect benefit?
We can, so if we don't mind, we can start this and we'll come talk to you right now about kind of what went through that. And just as in general, just anything that had an indirect benefit was something that wasn't directly replacing something with something else. So same thing went with charging car infrastructure. Even though we definitely agree that it's beneficial, that's why we called it indirect benefit. We recognize its benefit, but we can't fairly say that it reduces one more than the other. There's kind of that comparison. So, but we can certainly send someone over. We can keep talking about it.
So when you do an direct analysis as a risk assessment, you do not quantify at what point does it flow from a risk to an indirect, from a positive to a negative, or from a positive to a neutral.
From the benefit of those
Yeah, from
indirects.
benefit to indirect benefit. From direct benefit to indirect benefit.
Again, I think the direct benefits were something that were directly replacing a polluting engine with a less polluting engine, and indirect were things that were supporting the direct benefits, like CEQA, for example.
And that's based on quantified, right?
That's based on, again, sort of a physical replacement of a dirty something with a cleaner something. With CEQA, charging infrastructure, things that support, there's indirect benefit, just meaning that there's certainly benefit, and we recognize that, and that's, again, why it's on here, and recognizing it's a priority. We're just saying it's not directly reducing emissions from that one particular, it kind of causes something to reduce emissions or reduce exposure. We can certainly send someone over. Hopefully we can start the exercise. Yes. So, all right, so if everyone wants to get started, we would love it if you wanted to start sort of in order, and we'll let you know every 10 minutes, but it's, again, just up to you guys, and we do want to come together at the end and facilitate any last little bit of discussion. But really, this is a working group. We'll send this out to whoever wasn't here today. Thank you. Also, we recognize that there's lots of extra seats, so members of the public who want to participate are welcome to come up here, participate in the exercise, discuss with the committee. There's plenty of room, so please join us. Check, check. All right, everyone, thank you so much. We're going to start to wrap it up, and if you can finalize what your written comments are, again, we will have the opportunity to submit electronic comments. We'll come around right now and collect your ideas, and I'll pass it off to Jess to kind of wrap up, talk about next steps, and get some public comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a few quick comments on the next steps. Our next regular meeting will be July 10th, and the Air District has asked CARB to be the main presenter, as well as potentially other agencies during that meeting. As Jessica mentioned, they will be sending out a worksheet for those that were unable to attend tonight, and also if you have additional comments you'd like to submit, you can send that back via email. And there will be a brief summary to provide an update on everything that was discussed at this meeting during the next meeting. The following meeting, the second July meeting, will discuss details of the strategies that have been identified so far. Now we're going to open it up for public comment. So if there are any members of the public, we can allot 1 minute for each speaker. All right. Oh, we have one comment.
I sat at the wood-burning table at the last meeting, and I heard a number of people come up and say, gosh, why don't we just end residential wood burning altogether? Why don't we just proscribe it in this area? And the district response was, well, there are a lot of people who use that as their essential source of heat, their primary source of heat. And we don't really know how many people do that. It's probably 1% or less of the population. But the response seems to be, well, we'll go ahead and we'll implement what's already in the PM25 plan, and that's the extent that we're willing to do. What the district has already committed to do in the PM25 plan. So it was amusing to look at, but I guess that's the best that the Air District seems willing to do.
Thank you. I don't see any other public comments, so we will go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you all very much for your time.